I can barely make it. I can barely make it after a session.
Nobody had Blueface's mom turning into the main character on their bingo card this week, but here we are. Because when Karlissa decided to speak, she didn't clear her throat. She cleared the room, one rant, one alleged firing, and suddenly Jaidyn Alexis wasn't just trending. She was standing in the middle of a family civil war that made reality TV look underproduced. This wasn't a polite disagreement. This was generational chaos with Wi-Fi. Karlissa didn't tiptoe around feelings. She stomped straight through the narrative, addressing claims that she was fired as Jaidyn's manager like someone who had been waiting for this moment with notes prepared, and the way she said it, let's just say it didn't sound like damage control. It sounded like retaliation, because when a rapper's mom starts airing out management drama publicly, you already know the situation is cooked. This isn't miscommunication. This is don't say my name if you don't want a response. And the internet didn't blink. It leaned in, screenshots flew, clips replayed. And suddenly people weren't asking if there was drama. They were asking how bad it really was behind the scenes. This didn't start as a misunderstanding. It started as a whisper that grew teeth. One rumor slipped into the timeline, and suddenly the word fired was attached to Karlissa's name like it had always belonged there. Fired as Jaidyn Alexis's manager. Just like that. No explanation. No context. Just a title ripped away and replaced with speculation. And if there's one thing Karlissa has never been known for, it's letting someone rewrite her role quietly. Because make no mistake, this wasn't about a job description. This was about respect, relevance, and who really gets to claim credit when the spotlight hits. Management isn't just emails and calendars. It's proximity to decisions. It's influence over money. It's access to rooms the public never sees. So when that role is questioned publicly, it doesn't feel professional. It feels personal. Karlissa didn't wait for blogs to finish forming their think pieces. She went straight to addressing it, and the tone told the whole story. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't let me clear something up. This was frustration sharpened into sentences. The kind of frustration that builds when you feel erased from a narrative you helped create. The internet immediately split into analysis mode. People replayed her words, listening for hesitation, for cracks, for uncertainty. They didn't find much. What they heard was certainty mixed with offense. She sounded like someone who believed the story being told about her was not just wrong, but disrespectful. And in internet drama, disrespect is gasoline. Jaidyn Alexis, on the other hand, was suddenly standing at the center of a storm she hadn't publicly invited but couldn't dodge. Her name was now tied to allegations of cutting ties, making power moves, and pushing family out of business roles. Whether true or not, the optics were brutal. Silence from her side didn't calm things down. It intensified them. Because silence in a loud scandal never reads as neutrality, it reads as strategy. Fans immediately started pulling receipts from the past. Old clips where Karlissa appeared involved. Old posts where she hinted at behind-the-scenes work. Moments that once looked supportive were suddenly reframed as proof of involvement. The internet loves a before and after, and it started building one in real time. Supporters of Karlissa framed her as the backbone that never got proper acknowledgement. They argued she was present during the grind, the build-up, the messy early days before things looked marketable. To them, the idea that she could be quietly removed felt cold, disloyal, almost disrespectful to the history. Critics weren't as sympathetic. They argued that mixing family and business always ends badly, especially when fame enters the equation. They said this looked like another example of boundaries being crossed, of private disputes being dragged into public space for leverage. But even those critics admitted something uncomfortable. Karlissa didn't sound like she was guessing. She sounded like she knew exactly what she was responding to. And that's where the tension really started to thicken. Because Karlissa isn't just a manager or a parent, she's Blueface's mother, a woman who has never stayed silent while her family drama plays out online. Her voice carries history. It carries unresolved conflicts, public fallouts, and ears of watching personal business become content. So when she addressed Jaidyn directly, it didn't feel like a professional dispute. It felt like a family line being crossed, the kind that doesn't get smoothed over with a statement or a PR post, the kind that lingers and mutates. The phrase alleged firing became its own character in the drama. People debated whether the role was ever official, whether contracts existed, whether titles were being exaggerated or minimized depending on who was speaking. But those details didn't slow the conversation, they fueled it. Because ambiguity is the internet's favorite ingredient, Karlissa's response didn't try to soften that ambiguity. She didn't downplay her involvement, she didn't minimize her role. She pushed back hard against the idea that she was disposable or easily replaced. That alone shifted the narrative. This was no longer about whether she was fired. It was about whether she was being disrespected publicly. Jaidyn's silence continued to stretch, and with every hour, the story grew legs. Comment sections filled with demands for her to respond. Some defended her right to move quietly. Others accused her of hiding behind calm while chaos unfolded around her. No response satisfied anyone, because once the internet smells conflict, it wants confrontation. What made this situation feel heavier than usual was how familiar it all felt. Family involvement, money, control, public airing of private disputes. It echoed past scandals tied to the same circle, creating a sense that history was repeating itself with different names but the same energy. Viewers weren't just reacting to this moment, they were reacting to a pattern. Karlissa's defenders argued that her reaction was inevitable, that anyone in her position would snap after feeling sidelined. They framed her outburst as a correction, not an attack, a refusal to be quietly edited out of a story she helped write. To them, this wasn't drama, it was self-defense. Critics countered that public responses only escalate situations like this, that going live or speaking openly guarantees more chaos, not resolution. But even they couldn't deny one thing: the damage was already done the moment the rumor spread. Karlissa responding didn't create the drama, it confirmed it mattered. As the first wave settled, one truth became clear: this wasn't just about management, it was about hierarchy, about who gets to make decisions without explanation, about who feels entitled to answers, and about what happens when those questions get asked in front of an audience that never forgets. By the end of this chapter, the lines were drawn. Karlissa wasn't backing down, Jaidyn wasn't speaking up, and the internet had already chosen its sides. What started as a single rumor had evolved into a full-blown family business showdown with loyalty, power, and pride all on display. And this was only the beginning. Because once a conflict like this becomes public, it doesn't de-escalate. It escalates with every reaction, every silence, and every person who decides to add their voice to the noise. The next phase wasn't going to be quieter. It was going to be louder, messier, and impossible to ignore. Once Karlissa spoke, the situation stopped being a rumor and officially became a spectacle. The internet didn't just react, it swarmed. Clips were chopped, reposted, slowed down, captioned, and dissected like evidence in a courtroom where everyone thinks they're the judge. What had started as a quiet allegation about a manager role exploded into a full-blown power struggle play out in public, and the audience ate every second of it. Reaction videos multiplied overnight. Every creator with a ring light and an opinion suddenly became an expert on family dynamics and music management. Some framed Karlissa as the ultimate stage mom who finally snapped after being pushed out. Others painted her as the only one willing to say what everyone else was afraid to admit. The tone varied, but the conclusion was the same. This wasn't just business. This was personal. Jaidyn Alexis's silence became the loudest noise in the room. The longer she didn't respond, the more people filled in the gaps for her. Fans speculated that she'd outgrown Karlissa's involvement and wanted a cleaner, more professional image. Others claimed this was about control, about who had influence behind the scenes and who was being slowly phased out. Every theory added another layer of tension. Memes took over as the internet's coping mechanism. Fake management contracts started circulating with sarcastic captions. Screenshots of unrelated quotes were repurposed as proof of hidden beef. Even old family photos were dragged back into the spotlight and reinterpreted with fresh suspicion. Humor softened the edges, but it also ensured the story stayed alive long after the initial outrage. What really escalated things was how familiar the situation felt. Viewers recognized the pattern immediately. Family plus money plus fame almost never ends peacefully, especially when boundaries were never clearly drawn in the first place. People compared it to other celebrity family implosions, saying this made famous reality TV blow-ups look scripted. The difference here was that this wasn't edited. This was raw, immediate, and unpredictable. Karlissa's continued commentary added fuel without repeating the same fire. She didn't say the same thing twice. She reframed. She clarified. She emphasized different points, each time making it clearer that she felt pushed aside rather than politely transitioned out. That distinction mattered. Being replaced is one thing. Being erased is another. And her frustration resonated with people who felt sidelined in their own lives. Public opinion hardened into factions. One side argued that Karlissa's public approach was damaging and unnecessary, saying it only proved why family shouldn't be involved in business. The other side pushed back hard, saying respect is non-negotiable and silence is often used to invalidate people who speak up. The debate spilled far beyond the original issue, turning into a broader conversation about power, age, and who gets to control the narrative. Celebrities connected to the circle began feeling the pressure too. Comment sections flooded with questions, accusations, and demands for opinions. Anyone who tried to stay neutral was accused of choosing a side through silence. That's the internet's rulebook. If you don't speak, you're still speaking. Jaidyn's brand and public image started getting pulled into the debate whether she wanted it or not. Supporters defended her right to make business decisions without family approval. Critics accused her of being ungrateful or disloyal. Neither side had confirmation. But both sides spoke with absolute certainty, and certainty without faxes. The internet's favorite sport. What made this phase especially volatile was how quickly the narrative shifted from what happened to who's wrong. Once blame enters the equation, resolution disappears. Every new post became ammunition. Every pause became suspicious. The situation stopped moving forward and started looping, feeding on itself. The blogs noticed the engagement spike and leaned in harder. Headlines became sharper, language became more dramatic. Words like explodes, drags, and exposes dominated coverage. Each article added another layer of interpretation. Another angle, another reason for people to argue. The original issue, when alleged firing, became almost secondary to the spectacle surrounding it. Karlissa's critics accused her of enjoying the chaos too much. Her supporters argued she was reclaiming her voice in a space that tried to silence her. The truth, as usual, sat somewhere uncomfortable in between. But nuance doesn't trend. Conflict does not. As the noise reached its loudest point, one thing became undeniable. This wasn't going to resolve quietly. Too many egos were involved, too many eyes were watching, and too many people had already invested emotionally in choosing sides. Even if a private conversation happened behind the scenes, the public fallout was already locked in. By the end of this phase, the narrative had grown beyond anyone's control. It wasn't just Karlissa versus Jaidyn anymore. It was a referendum on family, loyalty, ambition, and the cost of mixing personal relationships with public careers. And the internet wasn't ready to let it go. Eventually, the chaos stopped feeling entertaining and started feeling consequential. That's always the turning point. The moment when people stop laughing at the clips and start asking what this actually means for everyone involved. Because once a public conflict reaches this stage, it doesn't disappear when the timeline refreshes. It settles into reputations, relationships, and long-term perception. And this situation hit that phase fast. For Karlissa, the aftermath was complicated. On one hand, She succeeded in doing exactly what she set out to do. She made it clear she wasn't going to be quietly rewritten out of the story. Nobody could pretend she was confused and involved or irrelevant anymore. Her voice was loud, her stance was firm, and her frustration was undeniable. But on the other hand, going public came with a cost. Once you speak in the court of public opinion, you don't get to control how your words are used. Some viewers began reframing her as a symbol of something bigger, a parent who felt pushed aside once the money, image, and branding evolved, a reminder that when fame grows, loyalty gets tested. That narrative earned her sympathy from people who've experienced similar sidelining in their own lives. But sympathy online is unstable. It shifts fast. Others saw her as proof of why boundaries matter. They argued that her involvement blurred lines that should have been drawn earlier, and that the fallout was inevitable. To them, this wasn't a shocking betrayal. It was a delayed consequence. And once that perspective gained traction, Karlissa's every move became evidence for critics who believed she overstepped long before the alleged firing. Jaidyn Alexis faced a different kind of pressure. Whether she responded or not, the story followed her. Silence painted her as cold and calculating to some. Speaking up risked escalating the drama even further. That's the trap of public conflict. There's no response that satisfies everyone, and the longer the situation lingers, the more people project motives onto you. Her public image started being filtered through a new lens: ambitious, strategic, possibly ruthless, or simply someone trying to regain control of her own career. The truth didn't matter as much as the story people chose to believe. And once that story sticks, it becomes part of your brand whether you consent to it or not. What made the fallout especially heavy was the family layer. This wasn't just two professionals disagreeing. This was family-adjacent conflict unfolding in public, with emotional history baked into every sentence. Viewers could feel that there were years of unresolved tension underneath the surface. That's why it didn't feel like a clean break. It felt like a fracture. Blueface's presence hovered over the situation like a shadow, even when he wasn't speaking. His history with public family drama made people assume deeper involvement, whether real or imagined, and that association alone kept the story alive. When a family already known for chaos experiences another rupture, the internet treats it less like news and more like confirmation. Industry observers quietly took notes. Not publicly, they never do, but situations like this send signals. They make people cautious. They make them question stability, boundaries, and whether private issues might eventually become public content. That doesn't mean doors slam shut immediately. It means conversations change tone, and tone matters. The most damaging part of the aftermath wasn't any single statement. It was the normalization of the conflict. What began as shocking became familiar. Comment sections referenced it casually. Reaction videos treated it like established lore. That's how narratives embed themselves. Repetition turns speculation into assumption, and assumption into reputation. Karlissa's future involvement, whatever form it takes, will now be viewed through this moment. Supporters will see her as outspoken and protective. Critics will see her as volatile and unpredictable. Jaidyn's decisions moving forward will be scrutinized for hidden motives, whether they exist or not. That's the tax of public conflict. You keep paying it long after the argument ends. What's striking is how unresolved everything remains. No clear confirmation, no clean denial, just competing stories and a lot of emotional residue. In internet culture, that's not a flaw, it's fuel. Because unresolved drama doesn't end, it waits. And waiting is dangerous, because the next time any of these names trend, this situation will resurface. Someone will bring it up. Someone will connect dots that may or may not exist. And the cycle will start again, louder or quieter depending on who speaks first. By the end of it all, one thing was obvious. This wasn't about a manager title anymore. It was about power, control, and who gets to define their role when the spotlight gets brighter. It exposed how fragile relationships become when business, family, and fame collide without clear boundaries. The internet eventually shifted its attention. As it always does, new scandals replaced old ones, new fights trended, but this one didn't vanish. It settled into the background, becoming part of the ongoing narrative surrounding everyone involved. And this right here is why celebrity drama never comes with a warning label. One rumor turns into a rant, one rant turns into a public standoff, and suddenly everyone's picking sides like it's a family reunion gone completely off the rails. This wasn't just a disagreement, it was a full-blown collision between loyalty, money, and ego broadcast in real time. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Karlissa had every right to go public and defend her role? Or did this cross a line that should have stayed behind closed doors? Was Jaidyn Alexis making a necessary business move? Or did the silence speak louder than any statement ever could? Drop your takes in the comments. Because the comment section is where the real investigations happen and nobody holds back. And don't tap that like button gently. Smash it like it owes you money. Hit it like it just leaked a group chat. Because every like tells the algorithm you want more unfiltered chaos, more celebrity power struggles, and zero sugarcoating. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now because these scandals don't schedule themselves and we don't miss a single one. Turn on notifications too, because this story isn't over. Today it's an alleged firing, tomorrow it's a response, next week it's deleted posts, misunderstood explanations, and sudden live streams that somehow make everything messier instead of clearer. This is Fame FLAWS, where loyalty gets tested, silence gets dissected, and family drama doesn't stay private for long.